There we go.
Hold on, gotta
What's wrong?
fix that.
I hit record. Time is money, Penny. What are we doing here?
Miss
I
Moneypenny.
I know, money, Penny. Ah, look at that. We'll start with a joke. Hey, everybody. It's Conscious Medium Brandon Ross, and
Astrologer and life coach, Penny Dix.
I'm going to get you a cue card that says I'm astrologer and life coach Penny Dix. You need a cue card for that. I don't.
I could also say I'm Penny Dix Astro Coach because that's my
Yeah,
sort of.
it's time to rebrand.
But do you know that when I first started this just back in 2020, my brand was Planetary Penny?
Which, I mean, listen, this is going to be a fun interactive video. If you like Planetary Penny, jot down below that you think that's a good thing. And we want to hear your reaction today because this video is going to be about the new moon. We've got a couple of aspects to point out. The new moon in Leo is the first thing up. And we're also going to be talking about the North Node work and then Jupiter going retrograde. There's a lot of energy going on. There's a lot of things. So there's a lot of things kind of turning within. There's a lot of things going introspective. And, this video is going to be a lot more about like how the energy is affecting you and how those things are. So like, comment, subscribe. Also start to kind of feed into the chat here, whether it be the chat if you're seeing it live or into the comments. How does this make you feel? Like, let it out, talk about it. If something resonates with you, really comment on it. And even if you think, oh gosh, I don't know if I should comment on this, or I don't quite know how to say it, you'd be surprised if you say something. That's one of the things I take a lot of pride in, seeing the comments, how much we're starting to kind of have each other's back. And we want to see everybody succeed. This isn't a competition. This is what's good. It should rise to the top. So that's how the vibe of this video is going along. And listen, I want to jump right into it, Penny. I mean,
Sure.
I think talking about the Leo moon right out of the gate, I think is a really important aspect here, because one of the dynamics that I've noticed, in moon astrology, and I have a good compatriarch in this, that like she's all over the moon. And one of the moon dynamics that I've really seen, I'm just making sure that, of course I picked the wrong one. Okay, now here with the new moon in Leo, which is going to be happening relatively shortly after this, but the energy, of course, with a new moon is a couple of days before and a couple of days after. So talk to what's your take on what the difference between a full moon and a new moon in terms of energy?
It's really interesting because a full moon, I think we're all aware of the energy of a full moon because it can tend to make us feel we can't sleep very well. We might feel a bit kind of irritated or wound up, or there's no surprise that emergency rooms are full on the night of a full moon, and hospitals actually prepare for it because they know that when the moon is full, they get more admissions. So usually with a new moon, it's really nice. We feel quite content and happy and thinking about setting our intentions and what do we want to invite into our lives with this, new moon energy. And but this particular new moon in Leo, for me, I have felt more like it's a full moon.
I 100% agree with that, because when you said full moon, you've been restless and sleeping. I mean, I pulled 2 all-nighters this week, where I'm going to sleep at 3, 4, 5 in the morning because I felt energized. I felt creative. It wasn't pure anxiousness, but there was definitely a little bit like, what the hell's going on? A little overthinking, if you will.
That's fascinating because today I've had the anxiety. I've had just a kind of a sense of something coming, and just feeling kind of, I don't know, like I want to break out in some way.
Yeah.
But I think that is possibly more the Uranus North Node Mars energy that we're getting ever closer to, day by day, minute by minute.
Yeah, let's save that for a second, and we'll go back to the new moon here. Yeah, because that's, I mean, you can see some of it here in the chart where we're going to talk about
Yeah,
the Uranus aspect here. But
down
you know,
there in the fourth house.
with the new moon, I mean, you know, first of all, as the moon goes into cycle, there's always duality in
Mm,
astrology, right? You know, you always look at things. That's why we use things like opposition. It's all relational. Everything is about relational, spatiality. So when a new moon, and this is the rule of thumb every month, there can be an anomaly, but it's going to happen once in our lifetime. That's how rare it is. But
mm.
it is, and it's not going to be in our current lifetime. Like I think the last time it happened was like 1842, and then the next time it's going to happen is going to be like 2680, where the moon actually slips out of the sign that it's in the month. It's an odd thing. It's I remember reading an article about it 2 decades ago, and I wish I could find it. But the new moon is in conjunct with the sun. Basically, in a nutshell, new is to the sun,
Yeah,
and the dynamic with that is that then the full moon is in opposition to the sun
that's
sign.
right.
So
Yeah,
as we're in Leo, the full moon this sun sun sign cycle will be Aquarius because
that's right.
Leo
So
is
next month,
opposition to
yeah,
Aquarius.
and that's
So
right, because next month we have the full moon in Aquarius, and it's conjunct Saturn.
during Leo,
Yeah,
during Leo. So all of these things kind of really, lend itself to the idea that, the reason why we're taking the time to break this down is because this helps you understand astrology. This helps you understand the moon cycles. And of
mm,
all of the personal planets, and the moon is considered a personal planet, this is the one that affects you the most. This is the one, if it affects the tides, it's going to affect you. And, for me, the energy, I've kind of traditionally with the new moon, it's a fresh start, it's a fresh beginning.
yeah.
I think that the energy of Leo being such, and I'm a Leo rising, so of course it's going to show up a
As
little bit.
am I.
Right. So there you go. So we're talking some of the same language. How great is that? It's a little parochial and it's a little, too much in one lane, maybe, but
But for both of us, this new moon is sitting in our 12th house, because for me, it's just inside my 12th house, but conjunct my ascendant. And for you, it's actually quite well back into your 12th house.
yeah,
Do
so
you
it's
see what I
kind of
mean?
like that emotional part of like revealing emotions,
And
being
I've
able.
noticed, and I don't know whether this might be interesting for some of you watching who know about your own charts. When the moon is transiting the 12th house of your natal chart, depending what your
Mhm.
ascendant, I always feel, I can always feel quite depressed, restricted, sort of just like I don't want to do anything. And, in a sense, that's what this new moon is bringing up for me again. I feel, restricted, depressed, don't really want to do anything.
I
So,
feel I feel like I'm a target. I feel like people are extra special dumping on me.
okay.
Where it's kind of that, and again, the emotional part of like being a natural empath, you're like, oh, I care about people. Well, right now, those people are just like, yeah, well, if you're not going to help me, whatever, and it's boundaries. It's a boundary conversation. I think Leos lose their boundaries the quickest, and they find them the quickest of all the
Yeah.
signs. Where
They're fixed. So Leo's fixed. So it can be quite boundaried, but at the same time, this creative energy, this
talk about
kind of
that.
this drama side of Leo, the Leo, and I know this being a Leo ascendant, yes, of course, I love being center stage. I wanted to be a successful actress, a successful recording artist, because that was, it was my passion. And now it's astrology. And so this Leo energy, when it's strong in your chart, I think one has to be quite mindful of it, to contain it, to actually consciously impose some boundaries on one's exuberance of expressiveness within this Leo energy, because otherwise I think it can get too much for
Yeah.
people. I don't know how you find yourself with your Leo ascendant.
Yeah, I'll speak to that insofar that I think, the things I was up doing all night, I wasn't just up with anxiety. The reasons why I pulled an all-nighter wasn't because of anxiety. I might have had a little anxiety, but it wasn't uncontrolled. It wasn't anything that I couldn't just still fall asleep to. It was more of a sense of urgency. Maybe that's the better word. There's a difference between anxiety and a sense of urgency.
That's
Those of you that have heard me mention it, Penny, I shared some of this with you. I have a book that just needs to come out. It needs to come out. And it's, when you talk about introspection, it's a book about how I became a medium, my journey to consciousness, the idea that I started to pay attention that the signs were in the activities and the connections that I had and the interactions, whether it was a reading or childhood stuff that I went through, and not drama, not painful necessarily, but when you have a gift and you're figuring out how to use it when you're young, it is 100% feeling like, why do I not fit in? What is up with this? And then on the flip side of that, the Leo rising is, I don't fit in here, right? Let me show you how
yes.
different I am. So it's owning it. I think this new moon in Leo is about, and this cuts across the signs, really. It cuts across everything. Is you have to start to own what you want to do with your exuberance, what you want to do with your energy. The lessons that astrology is teaching us right now, again, this started with the great conjunct in 2020, December 21st, the Star of David. I mean, just all of it. That was a time capsule unlock for us to be able to start this timeline of how are you going to clean it up. Right now, with the new moon, it's about being able to say, I have love, I have passion, I have creativity. What am I going to do with it? Am I going to waste it on people that are going to throw it back in your face? Are you going to waste it on something where you're just going to learn another lesson? No, that's the boundary you're talking about. And that 12th house, as much as it's the house of the undoing, it's also the house of becoming.
And look at what's on the ascendant. Capricorn, which is all about boundaries and structure. So this whole new moon energy is about finding boundaries, because I think you're right. This Leo energy can be so exuberant, and there is a sense of urgency. I think you're picking up something with when I was talking about the anxiety, and I'm thinking, yeah, actually, maybe it's not anxiety that I'm feeling, but maybe it's actually excitement, because I can feel there's an urgency in the cosmos in general. We're being propelled towards our destiny, whatever that means. And there is a speeding up in spite of all these planets, outer planets going retrograde. There's also a kind of speeding up of the energies, because the world is in a state of flux and change. And it's really kind of this, look, the part of fortune is on that Capricorn ascendant. So it's like saying the boundaries can be so good. If we can get the boundaries right and the structure, then the way forward can open up, and the new moon energy can release that power. And of course, the new moon is in the 7th house of significant relationships. I think this is also about.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say it's also like because it can be the house of open enemies. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemy. And I think there can be something about the Leo kind of personality which can be quite critical of the self. So they have this kind of double edge. There's the bit that's all out there going, hey, I want a party, I'm the star of the show. And the other bit, which is almost like the sad clown.
Because there's a sense of reality that you've made mistakes in the past, places where you've left things on the table, you've lost energy, you've felt used, you've been whatever. This lesson right now in that Capricorn ascending fortune combination is you saying, I have to project and promote that that boundary, that situation. I have to control this part of it. And then on the back end of that, all of this relationship housework is, I got to get this right. And by the way, when people come to you right now with boundaries, it's because they care about you. If
Yeah.
they're letting you go, it's if you're just like dismissing it, or they're wholesale just being like, you'll also see this happen a lot during a time like this. People justify why they don't want to necessarily be your friend or be associated with you. Like you'll see people literally read into things, and there may or may not be something there, but by and large, it's like, okay, well, thank you for making aware of it. Why does this affect us? It's amazing how much people will gaslight a relationship because they don't want to have the boundary conversation. Like, I don't want to be comfortable with this. I might have overstepped some bounds. You overstepped some bounds. But instead, they would just assume kind of go there. That's the energy right now. And they'll use boundaries of, I don't like this about you, so we're not going to do this. Right? Instead of saying, I'm not in a place to have this happen anymore. I'm going to take my responsibility. You take your responsibility. So that's the duality of this energy. And we got to, let's talk about, do you want to talk about Jupiter next? Because I think Jupiter is like the next affected here. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
Well, I just want to mention that Venus in the seventh house, because Venus, of course, is about our value and our self-worth, apart from money and material possessions, but and love, obviously love and relationship. But I think it's actually about what you're saying about when friends, when loved ones set boundaries, see it as the fact that they're actually valuing you. So it's not a rejection if somebody sets a boundary. It's actually saying, I value you enough to set this boundary.
And if you don't see it that way, there's value in understanding they're emotionally not where you thought they were, or they're not emotionally. Emotional IQ is why friends happen, right? You're into the same goofy stuff. Like, I'm able to go, that's why you have in your life, you have that friend that you'll watch Three Stooges with. I'm making stuff up. I'm sorry, Benny Hill. You'll have some people that'll watch. I have to make it British for you. They'll watch Benny Hill and be like, hey, this is funny. Remember that time and blah, 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 pantaloons. And then, and then you'll have the other friends that you'll have this deep dive intellectual conversation, and you have the capacity of both of those. Maybe you find it in one person, but by and large, you might have different groups of people. Pay attention to that. And by the way, the Venus is still in Cancer, even though it's in the seventh house. It's still going to represent this love of family, even if there's mistake written, even if there's whatever. It's a positive thing because it's a cleanup call. Like, this combination is cleaning up.
And it's cleaning up in the area of the chart connected with family and home, because you've got the node Uranus and the Mars there in Taurus. And remember, you still got Mars squaring Mercury in Leo. So there's tough talk at home, tough talk with really close relationships around this new moon energy, so that the relationships can be reborn, or at least be given a different life, a new life, so that it can move into a different kind of level of relating. And the Jupiter, to come to that, of course, is making this beautiful trine to the new moon. So Jupiter is actually expanding this. And actually, because it's in the sector about communication, it's saying talk to each other. If you have, this is a really perfect new moon for deep conversations with loved ones, because you can really help your relationships to move up a gear, move up a level. And what you were saying a bit earlier, Brandon, about how people, when you put boundaries down, they can take it the wrong way. So this is about going, okay, someone has set a boundary. I don't like it, but why don't we talk about it to find out why I don't like it? And then maybe I'll understand, and then I'll respect it. So,
And I think if you have close friends saying to you, if you have close friends coming to you right now and putting those boundaries in, it's because they look at you as family.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's kind of my that's my take on that. And if you know you're dismissing it, then that you didn't have the value that you thought you did, okay, take it and move on. And vice versa. I mean, you may say this isn't worth my energy. I need to move on from that. You know, the most powerful, the currency and the economy is moving towards energy. It just
Yeah.
is. And actually, well, I think we should switch over to the Jupiter side of things right here.
Yeah.
I'm going to
Right.
guess. I can't really. I think this is the Jupiter retrograde. Oh, look at that! I got it right. Come on,
Yes,
Penny.
well done, well done.
Listen,
Yes.
listen. I am. I this year is already shot, but next year I want to be editor of the year. Um, so this Jupiter retrograde is sitting in the first house, and our
Yeah.
you know that is attached to our personal energy. That is
Yeah.
attached to our personal persona. You know, and this retrograde might be, you know, a hit on reputation. It might be knocked down a peg. It might be, but it's doing it because it's right sizing you. And it was funny,
Yeah.
you were bringing up the boundaries before. And I use this analogy in one of the classes that I teach, where when it comes to boundaries, when it comes to boundaries, your a lot of the reasons why we don't get to the place that we need to is because, I mean, just look at time management. Look at the boundary of time management. If you're spread out doing all of these things, you don't get anything done. You look busy, you know, you look like you're doing a whole bunch of stuff. You might look successful because the activity is there, but do you really take off? Well, take that and push it all, take all of this stuff from a visual standpoint that's like out of base. And then if you push it all together into one spot, and you create a silo and you create this boundary around every side of it, it becomes a rocket and you're able to shoot up. That is
Mhm.
actually basic physics. So boundaries, when you start to apply a you know a basic physics application, I don't even want to say theory, it's an application that when you center your energy, when you focus your energy, then you can actually elevate, then you can actually take off figuratively and literally. When a
Mm.
friend is coming to you like this, they're saying we might be all over the place. Let's define this. So I can be really good at who I'm supposed to be for you. That was something I started to add in. I think this is a newer tool for me, but whenever I have like an interpersonal relationship like you and I have, one of the first things I said to you was, what do you need from me? Like
Mm.
what? That way I understand perfectly, like, oh, I can't fulfill that. Like right now I can yay or nay it. I don't want to lead you on. I also don't want to have you be like, oh, he was going to be this, but it's not. That's why I was very clear. Like, I'll take care of the edit. I'll send it this way. This is are you okay with this? Because I'm okay with this. And, you know,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
that was creating a rocket.
Yeah.
That was creating a rocket. Instead of, you know, it's kind of like a reading when you come in and you're like, I don't know what I want. Just tell me what you're getting. That's this right here. But when somebody comes in and says, I really want to connect with my dad, I have a lot going on with him. Or I have a family situation I want to get through. That's creating the rocket. So you get there. It's creating the boundaries and it
Mm.
eliminates the other stuff. It eliminates the guesswork. I mean, how many people in your life do you have guesswork? Like, I don't know. I know them, but I don't know them. Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, this Jupiter in retrograde here. And what's your take on this? And the timing
Well,
of it is the timing of it
yeah.
is pretty consistent. I mean, it's right after the new moon.
Yeah, it's literally a few hours after the new moon. And what I find interesting with this particular chart is that Aries is the ascendant. So you've actually got the signs in the order they're meant to be, which I find very interesting in this chart because with Jupiter going retrograde, it's still, of course, trining the new moon,
Right.
and it's trining the new moon even more. And it's still in an area of relating because the fifth house can be about it's a Leo house. So
Yeah.
it's it's family, it's relationships in the sense of say love affairs and romance and all those kind of
Yeah.
things, but there's still this energy of that. And I think that also what's important to look at is that Mars Uranus North Node in the house of finance, because this is where I think the Jupiter energy is going to show up in its perhaps negative way. I don't like to be negative with astrology, but we have to kind of
Yeah.
face the reality of what's going on in the world.
Well, it's
And
duality. You need both sides of it.
exactly. And
So
I
what,
think
how do you
going
think that would
retro,
affect people? How do you think that's going to be affecting people?
well, I think because we're also moving towards the Saturn-Uranus square again, which we had towards the end of last year, what we're going to see, I feel, is a retraction in the economy in general,
Sure.
so that everyone in general is going to feel that pinch. And it doesn't matter whether you're rich, medium, poor, whatever you are, everyone is going to recognize the need to cut back and not make major purchases. So what we're seeing here with Jupiter is that kind of reduction, that it's sort of emphasizing or magnifying the fact that we're going to have some potential economic struggles, which is not what we want. But I
Yeah,
think,
but you're also talking about this like more of a global thing, but of course global will affect
global,
us. So this
yes,
isn't like landing in your lap. Like if you've done the right thing, if you've been a good steward of your money, like this is just going to be
yeah,
like, okay, this is what I planned for.
yeah,
Um, in the global side of it, it's also some realities. You know, I look at it this way. This is a little bit of my insight. So we have this Jupiter turning retrograde. We're having this moon energy about friends and like these revelations of like, oh, okay, I gotta get this right, I gotta get it right. I think this Jupiter retrograde and Jupiter retrograde truly has the antithesis of Jupiter. In other words, Jupiter is about expansion. This is about being a little introspective. I think this is happening at the proper time for you to be able to say, I got to get granular. Like, I think that that's what's really going on. And you may personally expand because you get, and by the way, didn't I just describe getting granular? Didn't I
yeah,
just describe? So even though what we're delivering here is something to be like, all right, okay, you got to pay attention to it. When you're doing the work, it's about getting rid of the nonsense. It's
yeah,
about getting rid of, the hanger-ons, the coat-tailers, the people that come to your business office and spend 2 hours complaining about their life. You give them advice they never take and apply, and then you're there 2 hours late because you needed to do the work. You still
yeah.
need to get the job done. That's
Mhm.
what we're talking about. We're talking about eliminating that and using boundaries like, hey, Frank, I love hearing from you every day. I love hearing the bitch fest that you put forth, but I give you suggestions and you never take them. So you only have 5 minutes. What's going on?
Yeah.
And
And I think,
you just found an hour, 55 minutes in your life that before you were just giving it away. That's
yeah,
what this time is about. That's what
yeah,
this is. So Jupiter goes retrograde and says, what do you really need? Don't expand for expansion's sake. Don't just be kind for kindness sake. You've got to have purpose for what you're doing. This is a very purposeful dynamic, I think.
yeah, yeah. And I also think what's super interesting is that because things like the economy getting a little bit, you know, edgy,
Squirrely.
makes people a bit edgy because they think, oh no, this means I can't afford to do this or I can't do that. But what is so interesting is that the 12th house, which is Pisces, but it's what's known as an intercepted house. So Pisces is squeezed between Aquarius and Aries here. So Pisces, being the intuition and our ability to sense our gut feeling, is like, be careful you don't squeeze out your ability to tune into that bigger picture, to your intuition that knows the best way to say manage your finances. This is where it could be very easy to get in one's own way, to allow the overthinking of worry and anxiety about potential financial problems to take over. And so I think Pisces here is reminding us, especially because the part of fortune is in Pisces, it's saying use your gut, use your intuition,
Yeah.
tune into the greater picture. Know that this is temporary. This is
Oh,
temporary.
everything's temporary. Listen, join
Exactly.
us again next week when we tell you how the economy has recovered fully because of, right? No, but it's the truth though.
Yes,
But
it's
think about what
true.
you just
True.
described.
Yes.
So necessity is the mother of invention, right? So
Yes.
if you're telling me that you're feeling this and you're overthinking it, and we're in, we're having this activity in the second house, we're having this activity in the first house, it's an ownership thing. The 12th house is about redoing it in a way that you really need to kind of do it and having your hopes and dreams. Like you can be too dreamy, but don't be too dreamy. It's also a
Yes.
call to action, Penny. It's a call to
Yes.
action. And everything you just described was, don't forget about the intuition and make sure that you're really going to need to focus right now to get to where it is that you need to be.
Yeah.
We just
And
described the
where,
rocket.
yeah, and where is Jupiter heading back to? Pisces. Jupiter is going to move back into Pisces. I think it's during the end of October. So it moves back into Pisces and will stay there until I think it's beginning of next year, when it will finally move forward again, go
I
direct
think it's
into
4.5 months. I think we spoke
right.
about it before, and I think it's 4.5 months sitting back in
Yeah.
Pisces, which by the way is a, because when that goes station, when it goes direct, and by the way, what that means is that the planet stops moving for a day or so, like it sits there for a minute and then it moves forward. That, so when we use like big words like, oh, it went station, it means that it sat there for a day. Um,
From our perspective on Earth, it
we
looks as if it's standing still.
exactly, and we are going to see the create. So the work you're doing now, as this moves back through Aries, and your actions in expansion are about planning and getting it right and learning and having impact. When it gets to Pisces, that's when it gets created. So the hard work is now. The hard work and the cleanup is right now, and
Yes.
it's getting centered, and it's that rocket. So keep using that analogy. I think we should talk about the North Node though,
Yeah, let's get that chart up. I'm just
because
gonna
I think that that is going to be one of those,
mm,
you
this is
know,
interesting too. This is the so this exact conjunction is actually happening on the 1st of August. And I've set it for Greenwich Mean Time. And it's interesting because if we remember, the new moon was in the 7th house in Leo and with a Capricorn ascendant. And what have we got again for this exact conjunction? But we've actually got a Capricorn ascendant. So we've still got something about boundaries and not letting things get out of proportion and out of control. And for this event chart, we have Uranus, Mars, and the North Node in the 3rd house of communication, locality, the neighborhood. This is about seeing it. There's big changes, I think, in the way people learn to communicate and talk about the things that they're passionate about. Look at that Pluto in the 1st house.
I just, yeah.
Yeah, go on. What were
No,
you going?
Pluto is the great agitator.
Yeah,
It really is. And to me, we're in opposition to the sun, kind of wide, but we're still there. And then, poor Jupiter. Jupiter's kind of doing the tail race with Saturn, because
yeah,
I think most astrologers really pair like what's going on with Saturn Jupiter,
yeah,
for
yeah.
the bigger impact and that
They
sort of
are
thing.
these kind of push-pull, really, isn't it? This sort
Yeah,
of
and as you see, Jupiter kind of taking this retrograde time, the
mm,
node becomes really important because this becomes destiny stuff.
yes,
This becomes, the true thing of like, are you doing what you're supposed to be on your path? And that's where, and if anybody, has had a chance to see our video with Cheryl, we actually talked a lot about how well she has lived her life. And listen, we've all got stuff, but how impressive the stories
yeah,
that she told that were in connection to her astrology were like, oh, by the way, this happened during your Saturn return. This happened here. This happened there. And she said, boy, that's exactly what happened. I had this happen. I had this
yeah,
move happen. I had this going on. And it's, the one thing that I wanted to make sure was that like we didn't gang up on her. I think it was a very good session because we like gang up on her. It's like, oh, you did what when you were 22? No, that wasn't that. But
it was more likely that she and I would gang up on you, I think. I think we
that was
almost did at one point.
that was definitely the feel. That was definitely the feel. But let's
Well,
talk.
together.
Right, right. But this third house and in that
Yeah.
communication thing,
Mm,
Mars is about the action. And again, all of the signs, all of the planets, all of the aspects have multiple things that you can pull from. I think this combination has the emphasis of action
yeah.
with Mars, not war, not anger, not male.
It's like propulsion. It's like a rocket taking off. It feels
Well,
as if
then,
the energy of what's happening collectively, as well as perhaps individually in greater and lesser degrees, depending where it's falling in your own personal chart, is that we're all going to get this sense that something is coming. There is a kind of a sense that it's like a great big sort of surge, almost a tsunami. Perhaps that's what it is. This North Node, Mars Uranus, is like a tsunami of energy that is going to propel you into your destiny. And with this chart, it's something about really refining, redefining the way we value ourselves, the way we communicate our value, the way we talk to ourselves, the way we talk to each other.
yeah,
We can be so unkind to ourselves. We can be so unkind to each other. And that moon sitting out there all on its own in the eighth house in Virgo is like, Virgo is this, can be this little bit of worry pot, this kind of anxious mess sometimes, Virgo.
yeah,
And there's there's the moon saying, I think I have to change. I think
yeah.
things have
This is
got to change.
how about this? How about this is unsatisfying? I have to change this, right?
Yes, that's
And
it.
and
That's
first of
it.
all, I stand behind my analogy 100% that I bring up this rocket. This is one of those fuel powered powder kegs that will launch you. This is your opportunity in astrology, where the North Node, which is about your destiny, your karmic relationship, the work and the path that you're supposed to do. Look at your North Node in your chart and really read up on it right now because it's
Yes.
in
Yes.
retrograde. So it's I can talk about my North Node being something that being a Capricorn North Node, I can tell you that my challenge is about letting go of the old. My
Yeah.
challenge is about that boundary to make sure that I don't give away my energy. Everything we've been talking about is in my North Node. And
Yeah.
this isn't about me as much as it's about this is the realization why you have to do a deeper dive in your personal chart. Really
Yeah.
pull that out. There's a lot of good resources, and the key to internet research is get 3 different aspects. Go to
Mm.
3 different sites, 3 different people that have something published and doesn't have spam and all that other stuff, and allow yourself to absorb it because it's a real time thing. If you want to dive into your book, if you have a book, use that as a resource. But this is
Yeah.
accelerating your destiny. Right now, what's happening is this is accelerating what you are meant to do in this world. And by the
Yeah.
way, the rebellion, connected to this Uranus conversation is about you've got to change this for what works for you. And it's not going to look conventional.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to look
Yeah.
conventional. Or
Yes.
maybe, I'm going to say this, maybe you got so far away from conventional that now is the time to accept some convention. Does that make
There's
sense? Like,
yes, because the Capricorn ascendant, maybe in some ways we have to have a certain amount of convention to live in a civilized society. We can't all live
beautiful,
off the grid.
beautiful. And I think, and I think in the world view of this, and again, you move this forward, the conjunct is on Monday.
It's on the 1st of August.
Monday, yeah.
That's Monday, yeah. Yeah, Monday.
That's where,
But
that's
we've been in this energy since mid-July, and this energy will last until, in its heightened state till about the middle of August. But what is so, I think, enormous about this particular conjunction is that what happens for you in the next few weeks is setting the course, setting the tone for how basically the rest of your life is going to unfold.
No pressure.
No, this is a pivotal point. It really is.
And think
And
about all of the tools that astrology has given us over the past 6 months. You know,
yeah,
the eclipses, the conjunctions, the
yeah,
idea. I mean, just even if you follow the eclipses, I'll go back to that partial and then the full. What was it
yeah,
about? What do you want? What is your emotional value? Where do you feel things are? You
yeah.
almost start to lead with the heart. You lead with the heart. And what does the heart have is the balance of intuition and the brain, right?
And the
A lot of
heart
people
is
think it's a
love.
balance of heart and head. I'm going to tell you it's the balance of right brain and left brain, right?
Mm,
The heart is the capture. The heart is the part that captures the great memories and the heartache, both sides of it, right?
yeah,
The right
yeah,
brain and the left brain help you guide, your left brain being very highly intuitive, the right brain being very logical and progressive. So you
yeah,
have to, yeah, I mean, part of the reason why people talk themselves out of experiences are the logic. Like your father in passing comes to you in a dream, you could logic that away. You could
yeah,
say, "Oh, I just miss him. Of course I'm going to have a dream about him." Meanwhile, he said, "Play the lottery numbers." Well, you've just rationalized out of the blue whatever. You have
yeah,
to embrace the part of intuition where belief begins, where I have to trust this, I have to do this. And I think
yeah,
spirit is incredibly active with us,
yeah,
and astrology is another tool for it.
yeah.
It's really a perfect setting. What else do
Yeah,
you see?
and well, I want to mention that we've got a grand trine, which also becomes part of what's known as a kite. And the south node up there in Scorpio,
I
in
just
the
looked at
ninth
that.
house, right, is trining Venus. So we know this is super helpful, super great. This is about value. And it's also trining Neptune. This is about using our intuition, but also being careful that we don't kid ourselves, because sometimes the sort of deceptive side of Neptune can see we don't see things clearly. But Neptune is also trining Venus. It's a bit wide, but it's still a grand trine. But
Yeah,
then it becomes this kite where you've actually got the sextile from Venus to Uranus and the North Node and Mars, and you've got this sextile from Neptune to Mars, Uranus, and the North Node. So this is our destiny. This to me says
mm,
we are all spirit. We come from spirit. We have to use that energy to get us through this very tough time on this fixed planet, rocky planet. We
yeah,
have to use that psychic connection, that sense that we are spirit, that we are
right.
not just flesh and bone. There is something much more of substance to our whole kind of gestalt, if you like, our whole body.
Yeah,
And our destiny is through recognizing the value in what we've brought into this life through our kind of karmic past, if you like, which and recognizing that we can actually really almost move mountains. Because if you think of Uranus being this kind of basic earth
you can
shattering,
do it. Yeah, you could get caught up in the imposter syndrome, or you can get caught up in the reckless abandon. I'm going to get there. I can
yes,
do this. And the reminder of Neptune and then Venus is almost being able to say, like, but don't, you can, but you've got to get practical. All of this is talking about the rocket, by the way. And,
yeah,
and I want to bring this in with the South
yeah,
Node. The South Node is about our safety. It's about our what are most comfortable with. Scorpio energy, the first thing that you learn in astrology, and usually the reason why why you got involved with it because of the Cosmo, pole, is you could revert back into, instead of having the conversation, you could just turn it physical because it's a safe place for you. I mean, that's my read on it. So if you want great things, this becomes the best, you know, relationship tool, marriage counselor, whatever, instead of just touch. I mean, there's place for it, but right now it's about working through those tough things. I mean, interrupt you. What else did you have there?
No, I mean, first of all, the first thing that was in my mind is the fact that it makes this kind of kite formation, the angles. Well, what do we do with kites? We fly them. They soar up into the heavens. So this is almost like saying, let your dreams take flight. Allow yourself to dream big. Allow yourself to know that you can manifest into your life by communicating and recognizing the signs that divine brings you to actually bring into your life the things that you need for your highest good and for the highest good of others. So
Yeah.
I think everyone is going to feel the tsunami of this energy and a sense that they are moving towards some quite important point on their timeline, on their own timeline. What that is, you will have to interpret yourself. You know, please in the comments, write to us, tell us what it is that you think this particular energy is about for you, because I suspect everyone has something in the back of their mind at the moment and they're thinking,
100%.
I think this might be about, you know, getting that new job, or finding out I'm pregnant, or do you see what I mean? Or you know, making
Are you
that
trying to tell us
relationship.
something?
No, honey, that
No.
ship sailed.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I don't know. I've got my spatiality's all off. I don't know. I've had surgery, recent surgeries.
Listen,
Um,
listen.
but I also think that,
It's gonna happen.
yeah, but I also think that this is the grounding for us to be like the tool here and the asset. Like astrology is an asset. It is an asset.
Yeah.
This is an incredibly positive thing because we, you know, those things where we go back and you do a lot of coaching, I do a lot of coaching. In the past couple of months, I've heard nothing but regret. People making bad decisions after bad decisions. And we don't judge. I don't judge. But this is the time where you get it right. Where you said it's that little thing in the back of your mind where like, oh, that I got to address that. This, not only are the conversations going to happen, and by the way, not having the conversation is still having the conversation happen. You are also, it is also incredibly favorable for the receiver to be like, I get it. I might not be happy with it, but I get it. This is a time to really kind of flow this. Good time to go introspective, time to pay attention to your health, time to pay attention to your dreams, time to pay attention to the use of your energy and where you've lost it before. What a gift. Penny,
And
what a gift.
also time to actually value each other, because I think we've learned to become unfortunately too self-centered, and we're not always good at recognizing the harm we can do to others, and that actually people just
Yeah.
want the best for us. And you know, it's recognizing who's on your team. You know, we don't always think, well, who's on your team or my team? And the thing is also, are you on your own team?
Yeah.
Because sometimes we say we're not good to ourselves. And I think if we look at that Venus on the descendant in the seventh house again,
Yep.
this is about valuing each other. Value the people that love you because they love you for a reason. Value them.
Yeah.
And you know, try not to react to things, but to respond,
Get
because that, you know,
perspective. Get perspective. When this is the energy of perspective, the perspective. Are you scattered or are you set to go off? You know,
yeah,
it's like having good, tough conversations is where the magic is.
yeah,
Having good, and avoiding it. Listen, this is a karmic challenge of like, are you willing to put it out there? We manifest in secret. We manifest in our journal. We crumple it up and throw it into the fire. We do all this shit, excuse my French, that we think is always helping. And it is, because you're creating a mindset. That's the positive. The go time is when you have planetary connection like we're seeing right now, for you to put all of those notes down that you wrote and you burned and everything else, and you make it right. and you say, I can't do this anymore. I've been giving away my energy, Frank. I can't lose 2 hours a day listening to your nonsense. I can't
Mm.
be in a relationship where I feel like it's one-sided. And by the way, there is a fear of bad behavior to get out of that relationship. That, oh, I'm just going to find, you know what? They whistle when they breathe. Like you can find flaws with anyone. But at the end of the day, you've got to take personal responsibility to say, I can't do it. You do this wheezing thing, I'm out. Well, how is
Yeah,
that? If you give an rat's ass ounce of care for them, don't you owe them honesty?
yeah,
And it's not, and it might not even be that it's something wrong. It might just be that thing where it's like, it doesn't resonate with me and I can't do it.
yeah. And there's something else that we haven't mentioned about Taurus energy.
Oh,
Apart from Taurus energy being about
do
luxury,
tell.
materialism, it's the financial stuff, value. It's also about loyalty. Taurus by nature is a very loyal sign. Are you loyal to your dreams? Are you loyal to those that care about you? Are you loyal? What are you loyal? Are you loyal to yourself? Loyalty is actually a big flavor of this Taurus energy.
It's interesting. And by the way, now I'll mention politics. What has been the biggest challenge of Donald Trump? Nobody is loyal to him.
Yeah.
Good night,
Yeah.
everybody. Your comments below, please. Because you love that I just did that, don't you? You kind of love that one.
But don't get into this Trump stuff.
No, but it's also, but in reality, though, if it plays out on a world stage, if it plays out on a personal stage,
Yeah.
you see this Jupiter, on a grander scale, whether we're talking economy or somebody that's run rickshaw, they're about to get right sized
Yeah.
because Jupiter in retrograde, especially in the second house here. I mean, come on. That is just telling you that's you can't do it that way. Do not do it that way.
Yeah.
Right. So second house is that entire bottom of the chart is all Taurus because
Yes.
you're either in the second house, you've got Jupiter, Chiron,
Right.
all the way
Yeah.
over to
Yeah.
to Uranus. All of that is Taurus practical energy. All of it is because second
Yeah.
house is Taurus, and then you have the sign of Taurus. And having that retrograde feel with the North Node is just. We talk about, oh, I want to get there for my hopes and dreams. By the way, this is also the time where you say, I'm ready to retire. I'm going to be a light worker. I'm ready to jump into this. I'm ready to be whole with this. I'm ready to accept it. And then
Yeah.
you're gathering the troops and you're saying, okay, loved ones, I'm retiring from whatever it is. By the way, you don't have to retire by Monday. What you have to do is you have to have that conversation. This is about the planning. This is about the conversation. This is about those things. And then Jupiter does us an absolute favor by going station and direct back in Pisces. So this is a good time for you to manifest your dreams, but you
Oh,
got to
yeah.
start having the conversations now. This is where I want to go. This is who I want on board. This is the way I want it to look. It might not come to fruition until January. It might not come to fruition until whatever, but you have got to have this. You might not find full happiness for another couple of months out of these tough conversations. You cannot look
Mm.
for instant gratification here. You just can't. Not with Jupiter in retrograde like that. No way. But it's coming if you do the work.
Yeah. And it's time to have tough conversations with oneself.
I'm not sure I
Oh,
understand.
my watch just answered.
What can share your watch's emotions? Like, did your watch
My
just
watch just said, I'm not sure I quite understand. Well, what I'm saying is, Siri,
AI
is
is
that we
for
have
shit? Listen, artificial intelligence is for shit. That's what my answer is. It still doesn't get that right. It tells you what time it is. Have a good day.
is that we have to have those tough conversations with the self, because I was reading a passage today which I've seen before, but it was saying that about you have to spend something like 3% of your annual income on self-development. And that is money well spent. And people don't. People don't invest in themselves. They
It's,
might go and have a massage or a facial, but go and talk to someone about what goes on in their mind. Oh no, I'm not having anything done to me.
oh my gosh. I mean, I joke around with you all the time, you know, you being a therapist. I'm like, what's your copay? Like sometimes after our conversations, I'm like, what's your copay? Um, you know, so I have a bunch of grouse on way to you, but you know, but that percentage, whatever it is, I find this with people working with their path is that they find it like a shiny new toy. They find it like a shiny penny. No offense. But they're like, oh my gosh, look at this. Well, do you know what a chakra is? And they do it for kind of the rebellion in it to be like, well, I'm going to speak a different language and I'm going to find my tribe and we're going to whatever. And then you find them getting, you know, at first when they're genuinely inquisitive, when they're full ninth house and they just want to learn and apply and discover, then I can divide it up. And this is 12 years of experience and having a center and having all of that. There's the healthy path, which is I'm going to keep moving and I'm going to keep discovering. And then there's the not so healthy path where it becomes trauma bonding.
Yeah.
Where it becomes, I'm going to share that I went through this, which is what got me here, which is why I wanted to understand chakras or intermodality here or inter aspect here.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you're broken, I'm broken too. And then it becomes all about be broken. And then it's finding the enemies. Then the sixth house gets money because they just surround themselves with other trauma. And that's why it's a nightmare for centers to thrive, by the way. That's why there's no, even if it's a good grand center and you've got a great bookstore and a great crystal shop and that sort of thing, I've watched that cycle now happen 5 times on my watch in my space, where it becomes like, you know, I remember I called somebody out for past traumas and it was an addiction thing. And it wasn't, I'm not sharing anything out of school here because nobody knows anything. But when I said, I have concern for you, I became the enemy because I was shining a light on something. And then that made a sect happen. That made a division happen because it's like, it was the misinterpretation of I care about you and I'm seeing this. And it turned into, you're just talking about me and what kind of a light worker. It was like, you know what? I'm not going to care anymore. And it makes you cold. And it's funny, maybe I'm sharing what I'm going through right now with what I'm doing. I'm really realizing how much the lack of ownership of some people in their path. If you're going to go on this path and you're going to spend that 3%, 10%, whatever, going on a retreat in Sedona in November, taking a class coming up, getting into the pay channel, which is going to have all of these tools. It's created in a way that as much as it's a community of like, here's information, it's not a gossip farm. It's not a, oh, that person acted like that or that person shared something. You have to create a safe space for that and then respect other people.
Back to boundaries.
Well, there we go. You see exactly what I'm talking about. We have this human nature aspect that when we feel broken, we look at the broken in other things and other situations and we externalize it and we don't own it. You said it perfectly. This is about the self-talk of self saying, I can't, that behavior doesn't fit. I allowed this too much. I did this. And you know what, Penny? It is a healthy, emotional, intelligent thing. You could be the smartest person in the world. But if you keep getting that wrong, if you keep having a character flaw that you don't address, that you don't explore, and you may find it rooted because your mom didn't hug you. You may find it in something that has nothing to do with something you particularly did, and you're still reacting to something in your energy. You have to go back and heal that, you know? And that's one of those things that when I point that out, you're dumping more work on them. If we all took the responsibility to do the work on ourselves, that utopia is possible. That world is a better place or a bigger place or that sort of thing. If the people at the top had an emotional IQ that resonated, not only their job is for the common good, But time and time again, instead of the left and the right yelling at each other saying, oh yeah, well, your emails and your fundraiser and your whatever and your whatever, your whatever. The game is attack, not introspection. That's why it's broke. I think the most popular politician in the world will be the one to say, I screwed up. I've made amends. I'm going to get it right this time.
Yeah.
And they will speak to all the ills of being a politician, whether it be in scandal or money or whatever. That is the person that's going to be coming, because the forgiving is there, because more people are doing this work. Penny, I love that you brought that up, because I think the first thing I say to somebody in a reading is the work that I do is I work with people on their path. The things that are going to come through are going to be the people on your path, good, bad, or indifferent. You have to take into effect that you are on this journey of the positive. The negatives happen. The in-betweens are the space where you can grow and learn.
Yeah.
That's why we like to work together, by the way.
Yeah. And actually, we've talked a lot about boundaries today, and I think our boundary for this particular whiskey and bagel episode is probably reaching its conclusion. But I also wanted to say, have you noticed how good our personal boundaries have been with each other today? We've hardly flirted.
Well, if I show everybody my text that you sent me right before we started, you'd be like, oh. I would say you have to hold yourself personally accountable. No, it's also, I mean, listen, you look at things like that, and it's like, what is this about? I mean, Penny and I love each other. We've never even met. Like, we just, our astrology matches are everything up. We're so damn excited that we found each other, because we both put it out there and manifested to connect with a person that's an intellectual equal, that's able to have deep discussions like this and be open and honest.
Yeah.
And in
Yeah.
our conversation, I mean, listen, you talk of boundaries. When we first did our, like, I'll read you, you read me, by the end of that, we're both sobbing, going, what the fuck? We can't, this isn't for public, right?
Yes.
It was,
God, yeah.
but it was also the realization that I found somebody I could open up to like that. And you,
Yeah.
vice versa. Like, I get your development of gift and why it feels odd sometimes. You understood the idea of, you know, oh gosh, this happened to you, how you overcome this. That's where the sweet spot, by the way, that's why you came into my life when you did, because that kite that you talked about is showing that angle of like, hey, I'm taking you with me. You know, I'm holding up the Jerry Maguire moment, holding up the goldfish and say, who's coming with me? You're in. You're in. The people I'm having good, honest conversations with are, I need this process. I need this time. I need this whatever. And it's an amazing thing for you when you have that. On the other, it sucks in the moment. You're like, I can't believe I'm having to say this to you, but here I am. And then on the other side of it, you're like, boy, that was healthy. Holy shit, was that healthy?
Yeah. And this is the thing, we have to follow our own star. We have to sail our own ship. And if people want to come with us on our particular ship, star, whatever, then that's their choice. But it's not about subjugating your talents and skills to fit in with somebody else. And I think that's what you're saying about where we've connected so well, is that our kind of knowledge and experience come from two different places, but they meld so well together.
We're creating a Merkaba. You know, and the Merkaba, and I talk about these in classes, where the Merkaba is your perspective, my perspective becomes our perspective, and that's how you make the seal. And that's, it's that Aquarian energy. It's not this. I'm not relying on Penny to get me likes. Penny's not relying on Brandon to grow her channel per se, but it's a symbiotic relationship where it's like, hey, your talent and my talent go good together. This is what's in it for me. That should be what's in it for you. These are the conversations. They're very Aquarian conversations, and they're peeling apart this, because we have to learn that this Piscean energy of codependency is dead. It is dead. It has died its death. We're just realizing it. I remember I was like 13 years old, and I was looking for heroes when I was a kid for a whole host of reasons. Thank you very much. This isn't a therapy session. But when I found out that John Wayne had died, like, I was watching old Johnny Carson stuff. I was watching all of his movies. I watched The Quiet Man, which, by the way, became enhanced. I thought I was watching The Quiet Man. I was like, it's kind of mushy, but all right, okay. And it comes up in readings all the time. Like they'll be like, oh, he understands this. My dad was the quiet man. Well, yeah, he was an Irish man, and this is what blah blah blah, tall, good looking, handsome, all that stuff. When I found out that he died, I was like crestfallen. I went through like bereavement because I was like, here's somebody I could have looked up to. Now he had his flaws. Everybody heard about him afterwards, but why do we externalize like that? It was one of my first lessons in recognizing that, like, oh, I can be my own person here. I don't need to look at him. I don't need to idolize a. I can admire their talent. I could enjoy their work, but I wasn't going to put all of my eggs in the basket of judging them. And now, fast forward this, it's taking lessons like that and saying, you know, that's why I say to you, you're the best astrologer I've ever seen in terms of your depth of knowledge towards understanding how it applies to people. Like you have that. Of course you do. That's what I've looked at. That's where that bing. Hey, I'll be the outgoing, gregarious guy that makes jokes and slightly off-color comments, and you'll come in with the, you know, critical expertise, and then I'll bring in an observation. You'll have a retort, right? And then we make a 7.5-hour video, and you're like, Brandon, boundaries. All right, guys, listen. Thank you so much. Quiet that watch. Thank you so much again, guys, for joining us. Enjoyable as always. Remember, hydrate, get your rest, have those conversations. You're gonna do it. You are becoming. Any of the stresses, the anxieties, the challenges are about becoming. And listen, guys, I just want you to remember to simply keep going. Penny, it's an honor as always, and I give you the heart tap. All right, guys. Thank you so much. We'll see you soon.
Brandon. Thank you, everyone. Bye.